Gemini and Google have been sleeping a bit at the wheel, it seems. So they released 3 new Gemini models.
They're like a dark horse in this race, but they're just not doing what we expected them to.
They're like a sick dark horse. They're like in the back. They're like struggling to keep
dude,
up. They're still there. Thank you all for tuning in. We're live in London.
In London, mate.
We are having an offsite this week with Mastra, so we're hanging out with a lot of the team members. But like we do every week, we're going to do the news. And normally we do this on Monday, but because of the travel, because of the conference week, we're doing it on Tuesday. So if you're tuning in live, thank you. And if you're watching after, go give us that review.
Did you review it yet?
Because you should. Give us that 5-star. We appreciate it. It helps other people find the show. All right, we are going to go through the news for this week. We're going to do it pretty quick. There's a few big things, but it wasn't a crazy news week. I think there was kind of one big model drop, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time. Kimi K3.
Kimi K3.
We got to talk about it. So this was on July 16th, introducing Kimi K3, Open Frontier Intelligence. It's a 2.8 trillion parameter model, a million token context window, native multimodal. And then let's look at the benchmarks. So this one is across like knowledge work and agentic browsing. You can see Kimi K3 is right there with Fable 5, which is, you look at like, what are the top models? It's Fable 5 and GPT 5.6, right?
Yep.
Like that's where everyone's comparing against. And the general consensus is Fable 5 is maybe slightly better at quite a bit of things than 5.6, but not a lot better. And 5.6 is just right there. And then 4.8 is, maybe around 5.6, but maybe just below. I think is that how you would?
I would say
roughly.
And then there's a big price difference between these things as well.
Fable being very expensive.
Yes.
But Kimi K3 is kind of right there. It beats Fable in some things. It beats Soul in some things. And again, this is just knowledge work and agentic browsing.
And cheaper price, which is wild.
But it isn't open model cheap the way you'd expect. They kind of priced it to be comparable. I think it's still cheaper than OpenAI's models, but not that much cheaper.
Yeah, it's like Sonnet level prices.
Yeah, it's like Sonnet prices, which most of kind of like the Chinese models, they haven't priced it that way before. So it's expensive when you consider compared to most open source models, more open weight models.
And their hardware isn't as good. So they're going to be working on it, of course, but you're paying cheaper. Maybe the performance is whatever now, but you get the results.
Yeah, the results are pretty close to frontier. And so Kimi K3 scores 57 on the Artificial Analysis Index. It's comparable to Opus 4.8 and 5.5, but it's behind Fable and 5.6. They were going to release the open weights, which would make it the leading open source model, and it's not really that close, right? It's quite a bit higher than all the other open models. Yeah. Then I started seeing some additional things that came in, which was very interesting. So big news, Kimi K3 is now number 1 on the front-end code arena with 1,679 points, surpassing Fable 5.
It's wild.
So this is like front-end coding, right? And then it's officially number 1 on the front-end web app arena by Design Arena. And so it beats, Fable 5, Sonnet 5, Opus 4.8.
I think it's very interesting because, when we talk to Marvin and Damien, our front-end engineers, they always comment on how bad the models are at front-end, and design in general.
Yeah, it's like it can kind of follow design sometimes, but it writes, as Marvin would say, really shitty React code. Yeah. It can get the job done, but it's not great at it.
I think it's so interesting that Kimi is really good at front end because that urges a lot more people to use it. Because
it's a bit of a differentiator.
It's a differentiator.
Yeah. And I spun it up on a front-end task, and it missed the logic on a couple things that I would hope it would have caught, but it kind of one-shotted the design that I wanted, and it was pretty good. Like it made its own decisions. It wasn't. I'm not a designer, so I'm sure that Damien or Marvin on our team would look at it and say like, okay, I would do this a little differently. But from my perspective, it did as good or maybe a better job than I've seen Fable do or 5.6 do.
People posting their websites that they've been creating with Kimi. They look cool. And it was a one-shot. I saw someone rebuild Counter-Strike with Kimi, one shot. Like, that's dope, you know? And the game didn't even look that bad. Like, if that's a one shot, that is amazing.
And then, so Kimi K3 on legal tasks is 2 times the Fable performance. So if that's true, then there might be an application for Kimi if you're building some kind of legal agent.
It's like they made the model good for things that people would enter the market and people will come to you, right? So front end, knowledge work. Not everyone's building coding agents and shit.
This is from Yulun Du from the team. The blog post was out. And rest assured, the K3 model weights will be open in the coming day. So they want to make it open, which makes it the leading open source model. And then this came out. And I think this is what, if I were a model lab, a big model lab in the US, I might be slightly concerned about.
Yes.
It's the announcement that Kimi K3 has received far more love than we expected, and our GPUs are feeling it. Over the past 48 hours, demand has pushed close to the limits of our current capacity. To protect the experience of existing subscribers, we're pausing new subscriptions. So
that's intense.
People are using it.
People are using it.
Who knows what, I don't know if they actually released numbers, and of course, I think we all know that the Chinese model companies are a bit more compute constrained. Even the US companies are obviously very compute constrained, but the hardware that we have is arguably much better.
Yeah.
But it still is interesting that they probably planned for it to get some hype. They were probably building capacity for this launch, and it obviously exceeded their expectations.
Yeah. Kimi, you got to reach out to Alibaba ASAP. Get on that infrastructure.
On Alibaba Cloud.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, like, how do you use, so what is Alibaba Cloud? Because I know you've mentioned it, but people on the show might not know what it is.
Yeah, so Ali Cloud is a provider. You can get a subscription token plan there, and it allows you to use all the open models. So you can use DeepSeek V4. They don't have Kimi 3 yet, but they have Kimi 2.7, GLM 5.2. Usually the open models make it to Ali Cloud at some point.
And the inference there is faster, typically.
It's very fast because you're using, Ali Cloud infrastructure. So compare like GLM 5 from Z versus from Ali Cloud, you'll get a way faster performance. Like I tried Kimi just with the API key. It was cool, but it's just like these things have to be fast for you to use them in real life, right?
Yeah, for me it was like kick off the task, walk away.
Yeah.
I let Mastra code cook, and then I wasn't in a rush, right? I knew that if it took 5 hours, it wasn't a big deal, and that's about what it took.
Yeah, but I think more like knowledge work and things are more human in the loop and sitting on the loop, and if it's watching paint dry, it's just going to be tough.
Yep.
So I usually use any open model on Ali Cloud because it's just better performance.
And then Claude AI came back, on July 17th, one day later, and said, beginning July 20th, Claude Fable will be included in all Max and Team Premium plans at 50% of limits. So Pro and Team standard users will continue to have access to Fable via usage credits and will receive a one-time $100 credit. In my opinion, they had to do this.
Yeah.
This was had to be like a code red at Anthropic. We can't remove Fable from the plans because these other models are good enough where people will not pay for API usage. They need it as part of the subscription.
Exactly.
That's my read of this. They had to.
And then Tarek posted that credit to all Anthropic engineering for figuring this thing out. We had to. You had to figure it out.
They had to figure it out, or they were going to lose subscribers. And then I saw this come out. Came out yesterday, I believe. It says Opus 5 leaks coming Thursday. So maybe they're going to release Opus 5. This person speculates it's their answer to 5.6 Kimi K3. It's this idea that we need a higher level of Opus. Maybe it doesn't beat Fable on everything, but it's comparable to Fable at Opus prices, which are maybe a little cheaper, maybe a little faster than Fable. They already released Sonnet 5, right? So what does Opus 5 look like? It should be ahead of Sonnet 5, which gets you close to Fable.
We'll see though. I mean, Sonnet 5 was a flop, so people don't want Opus 5. They just want to use Fable. So
then some of these things came out, and this, I did some research. It's fake.
Yeah.
This is totally fake. But you've seen a lot of posts where Dario, and I'm going to call Dario out, complaining about distillation attacks. And so this is just a post from someone saying Kimi is still calling itself Claude. The joke being that Kimi was trained on distilled data from Anthropic models. For those that don't know how distillation works, as far as I understand it, there are tens of thousands of Chinese accounts, or they created tens of thousands of Anthropic accounts, and as they need data, they'll basically route through Anthropic models, get the prompt response, and then use that in their next round of training data, right? So they're sending tens of thousands of requests. And so then you have people like Dario going on and saying, we need to stop distillation attacks. Distillation attacks threaten US model companies. And my response to that is, how did you get your training data?
Yeah.
Wait, did you pay for that training data when you trained your models? Or did you just take all the data we've been putting on the internet for the last 20 years and use that for free?
For free.
For the most part. A few copyright claims, right?
Yeah. And everybody's current usage that is feeding your system as well.
And then anytime I use it, now you're using my data again for free, right? And I guess, and actually I'm paying you to take my data. Here you go. I'll pay you. You can have my data and you can use it to train your future models. And so I don't really get the idea that you should then be able to complain about people using your responses, right? They paid for that response. And you're saying they shouldn't be able to use that for whatever they want?
Well, in some cases, they didn't pay because if y'all don't know, there are gateway farms, essentially criminals that take free credit usage, make a little router gateway, and they'll go sign up for everybody giving tokens away.
We've had that happen to us.
We've had that happen to us. Yeah, it happens.
But in that case, Anthropic got paid for that.
Yeah, someone got paid.
And Anthropic
and
got
someone
paid.
got stolen from, too.
Yeah, Anthropic, the gateway didn't get paid. And maybe there are free plans for, Anthropic and OpenAI so that you can put some of it through there. But again, they can crack down on that. They don't have to give away free inference.
Yeah.
And my argument is if I send a request to Anthropic, write me some code. Shouldn't I be able to use that code however I want? I can change it. I can use it in my program. You don't own that code. I bought it, right? That's how I perceive it. I haven't read the terms of service. Maybe they own the code that they wrote too. But my expectation would be if you write a blog post for me and I take parts of it or an outline for a blog post, or some people are using it to help them generate ideas for books or write books, right? If I take parts of that, do I own that, or does Anthropic own that output? And if I own that output, then I should be able to use it however I want, even if that means training a new model. And you got paid for that output, so I don't see the whole crying over distillation tax seems overblown.
Well, and also it's not just crying over distillation; it's crying over open source, saying open source sucks.
Open source is bad for...
Open source models are bad. And
open source is bad for Anthropic.
Yeah.
It's good for the average person.
Yeah.
Over time, if the models continue to get better, there's enough competition, the price goes down.
Yeah.
So tokens should be cheaper for all of us.
Maybe this is an American problem or a US problem where we're not investing in the open models. If you look at the valuation of these companies, why would anyone do open models in America if you can make $1 trillion company, right? But I bet Elon is going to do open.
I feel like if you are not at the frontier, you almost have to make it open unless you have a very specific niche. If you're not right at the frontier, no one's going to use it.
Yeah.
But if it's open and people have access to it, people can have this idea that, I could fine tune on this. I could have access to it. I could run it myself if I wanted to. Now they might settle for a little less intelligence, a little less speed if they have to run it themselves because they have more flexibility, right? That's like the trade-off. You're willing to make that if it's open.
Yeah, and it's capable. If it's capable, open, and as we know from open source, people don't really want to run things themselves, but they want the idea, the ability to do it, and then they'll still pay you to run it for them.
They want to know that if I had to, if shit got real, I could.
If shit got real, I could run this stuff on my NVIDIA computer thing, but
I could
you handle it for me, please.
It might cost me a couple $100,000 in GPUs, but I could figure it out, But then this came through. So maybe Anthropic does have to pay for their training data after all. And again, this is, I think, the largest U.S. copyright settlement ever. $1.5 billion Anthropic had to pay. I think it was for some basically using books in the training data that they didn't pay
OpenAI got charged with this too. So
OpenAI got hit. It wasn't as big, but
so J.K. Rowling's making more money? God damn, dude.
Not all the training data was free, but still most of it was, right? If they had to pay for every generation of training data, if they had actually paid tokens for that, it would have been too much. They wouldn't have afforded it, right? So most of the data that they have was open internet data. So I think the point still stands. Stop complaining about distillation.
Yeah, and pay the $1.5 billion.
Would you like to be a guest on the show? Visit mastra.ai/guest. Do you have a hot take, a problem you cracked, a cool product, or a demo worth watching? Share them right here on Agents Hour.
So speaking of open source, Grok Build went open source. I don't know if they were planning on doing this or if it was because of some of the...
It might have been the blunders.
Some of the blunders of, sending a lot of Git commit history and Git history to...
Google Cloud.
To Google Cloud. But they said, we've open sourced Grok Build and have reset usage limits for all users. So it allows anyone to support making reliable and robust harness. So you can check out their code, including the Git repo for the Grok Build CLI.
I think it's a great move.
So I think OpenAI's Codex is open source, right?
Kind of.
Kind of. And so now Grok Build is open source. Claude isn't.
Claude
right?
isn't.
It was source available at one point.
Source available.
When it got leaked, but it's not open source. So there's some other new models. So Thinking Machine, they've kind of came out with some stuff recently, and they announced Inkling. It reasons efficiently across text, image, and audio modalities, and they're making the full weights available.
Nice.
But then
we roast this company all the time, so at least they're making moves for once.
Yeah, no, they're making moves. And some of the interesting things is how it allows you to, I think, better fine-tune their models, right?
Yeah, you can use the Tinker product, which we talked about in this show. So couple that with their model, you essentially have a open model that you can fine-tune and customize.
And then it runs on their infra, though. So you can like more easily, like that's their angle, is they want you to say like, hey, we have a good model. It's not frontier, but it's pretty good. And now you can customize it with your own data, and you can get your own customized model in a much more streamlined way.
Yeah. And, I thought we would see more of this already, but I think people are so distracted by Frontier and the out-of-the-box capabilities that we're getting. But there's a whole field of study in making your model and your agents better just with cheaper models and, with fine-tuning and reinforcement learning.
Fine-tuning, RL. And I don't think the day has come yet, but it's going to come. Tools like this are going to make it easier. More people are going to build things like this. You're going to be able to drop in, connect to your knowledge base in some way and get a model out, and it's going to cost you not tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And you'll have a smaller model that could be faster because it's smaller and kind of tuned to your to what you need, your task. Also, Gemini. 3 new Gemini models. Gemini and Google have been sleeping a bit at the wheel, it seems.
Yep.
So they released some new models, Gemini 3.6 Flash, 3.5 Flash Lite, and 3.5 Flash Cyber. They are better than any of the, or at least 3.6 Flash is better than 3.1 Pro.
Yeah.
So their Flash model has now exceeded their Pro model. But if you look at the benchmarks, it's below Frontier in almost everything.
Dare I say, who gives a fuck about Gemini, honestly? Like,
Yeah.
no offense to the homies, but they're like a dark horse in this race, but they're just not doing what we expected them to.
They're like a sick dark horse. They're like in the back. They're like struggling to keep
dude,
up. They're still
man.
there. They're still in the race. You're still there.
Yeah.
But barely.
I don't know. Like, maybe DeepMind needs to go into the dungeon and make some moves because they're not scoring well on benchmarks, I don't know anyone who uses Gemini for any task other than part of Google products, which it is dope there.
Yeah, consumer products. I mean, if you're Google, the reason you're still in this game is because I have a friend that uses Gemini because he uses Google products, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are going to use the thing that's in the tools you already have. You already have the distribution mode.
Yes.
So they have the consumer access. Arguably, like them and OpenAI, they're the two that have consumer access at this point for AI. So you're not that far from winning.
Yeah.
So you're just right there, at least winning the consumer. I think winning the business and the enterprise, especially for the largest markets, which are coding, no one's using Gemini for coding.
No.
And maybe they don't care. Maybe they're okay losing that market if they can win consumer. But I don't think they're winning.
But if you're doing consumer, then why do you even have to announce models? Like, who cares? Like, it's just updated in your products and it's going to be tight, but you don't need to tell us about your models because then everyone's going to benchmark them and then no one wants to use them because they're not scoring well on benchmarks.
Yeah.
But we still use Google every day. Like, who cares about the model behind it?
Arguably in Google Search, I think Google Search has improved with some of the AI tools.
Yeah.
I think that's useful. Some of the things that I would go to ChatGPT or Claude, I'll just now use a Google search.
Yep.
So I
Ask
think
AI on Google is goated. Like, it's dope.
And again, it's just using these models. But I feel like they're trying to play both games and they're only competitive in one. They're probably winning on like some enterprise contracts that, bake in to GCP providers, right? Like, they have tokens you can use and you can use their models. And so maybe they are getting some things there.
But then look at it, they got rid of Gemini CLI, anti-gravity, who cares? Like, they're doing all these plays in our space, but just no one cares.
All right. This section is called Is Ramp an AI Company? Because they released Ramp Router. It says 3 years ago, we built an internal LLM router at TryRamp that powers AI products for 70,000 customers. Back then, it was mostly about saving money. Now it feels obvious. The best model changes constantly. GPT, Claude, Gemini. We're talking about it, right?
Yep.
I mean, maybe not Gemini, but the rest of them. And so we're opening access to anyone. One OpenAI compatible endpoint, the right model for every request, lower cost without rewriting your app. There's a lot of gateways out there, but now you can just pay Ramp for inference, apparently.
This is like a dime a dozen thing. Like, I'm not a hater on Ramp because we use Ramp. I love the product, kind of. My perspective here is the Ramp engineering team is cracked.
Yep.
They're building a boring ass product. That's fine. and it's a very useful product.
Yeah, and they're doing some AI embedded in it. They're doing some unique things.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's a finance product, which isn't, if you're a developer, it's probably not that exciting.
And they're doing financial engineering, AI engineering with their, consulting arm or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Now they're doing like FDEs for financial engineering.
They have Inspect, which is like their software factory. They have this router. What I really respect about them is they are doing what we used to do back in the day, where if you're working for a closed source company and you start finding things that you find useful and you share it with the community, right? Like now, if Inspect, I think Ramp Inspect was the first factory that people knew about, which started a whole trend. Now, routers, it was already a trend, but now you can leverage their thing. So anything that they're learning, they're publishing, and they're writing blog posts about it. It's very that's how it should be. If you're not working in open source, this is one way to do it, right?
Yep. So my take is Ramp is going all in. Ramp is going to try to be an AI company in the same way that Amazon tried to become a web services company and did, right?
Yeah.
Amazon makes, arguably more money from AWS. I don't know the actual, but I'm pretty sure they make more from AWS than they make from Amazon. I think Ramp is going to pivot. This is my bold take. No inside knowledge. I know nobody at Ramp. I think Ramp is going to pivot. Ramp is going to offer something like Inspect to compete with Devin.
Yeah.
And I think they are going to be an AI company that has a financial services arm, not a financial service company that has an AI arm.
That's an interesting take.
I think that's going to happen. I think the timeline is 6 months, and I think we're going to look here at the end of the year, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I think they're going to go hard. And I think
they're going to pull in Allbirds.
Yeah, I think Inspect's coming out as a product.
Yeah.
I think they're likely to maybe have some kind of model of their own. Maybe it's tuned for finance at first, but I think they're going to have their own models. I think they are going all in, and maybe they should. They've been releasing a lot of information. They've been positioning. This is their first real, that's not even finance related. Before doing FDEs and building agents for financial services, you're kind of that's what Anthropic and OpenAI are doing. This is their AWS. That's my guess. And I think it helps their valuation. I think it gets people more excited. That's my hot take. I'm probably wrong, but you gotta swing swing for the fence sometimes.
They'll be better than Gemini, so it'll be good.
They probably will be. This section is called Will Our Agents Order Us Pizza? So DoorDash CLI is now available in limited beta. DD-CLI lets you order DoorDash directly from your agent. Search stores, find the best deals, checkout, and more. Early access for US and Canadian macOS developers by waitlist.
I have a hot take.
All right.
DoorDash is going to become an AI company. They're going to go all in. No, this is dope, dude. I mean, it's so interesting, but who cares? Who would use this? I don't get it.
You're not going to build an agent to order you pizza?
I guess I don't know. We should We should try this out, obviously, when we get back to the States.
Okay, yeah. When we get into the US, we will try to order some pizza live on a live stream and see if by the end of the live stream it gets there.
Yeah.
That's the test. That's the DoorDash test.
I think it's cool though. Maybe Uber Eats and other companies will do this.
And speaking of Uber Eats, so we have Dax here, which this is not related to Uber Eats really. It's just I put in this section because he built an Uber Eats CLI.
Okay.
Which is cool. You can basically just build your own things, right? But I think the technique. This is kind of a cool technique. If you're a developer, you might not have thought of something like this. So Dax said, Jay Longster told them this technique, but you can essentially just record network requests. You can ask your agent to record the network requests, navigate the browser, record all the requests, and then you could just build a CLI for it.
Yeah.
So you can manufacture your own DoorDash CLI, your own Uber Eats CLI if you wanted to for any website.
Yeah.
The idea being that network requests are easier to automate, right? Or script. Because it's just hey, if I interact with this element on the web page, which could move if, I'm on a different browser resolution or whatever, maybe the markup changes. It's the API request probably doesn't change as often.
Yeah, and where it might break down is with authentication. Maybe you have to get the cookie.
You have to pass in a session
or
cookie.
Grab the JWT or something. But
I'm assuming that's what you have to do is you have to go in and grab the right cookie, drop it in, and then your agent uses that in the header. Still kind of a cool idea. All right, so we're going to rapid fire through these last few things. So we have a few launches. OpenShip. This is an open source application platform for building, deploying, operating, and scaling applications on infrastructure you own. So you can kind of ship it yourself, ship your own to your own infra and control it. AI SDK for Python. So AI SDK is not just for TypeScript devs anymore, apparently. So they released this at EuroPython. So that's interesting. Now this last one is Alex on our team shared this video. I thought it was a good video. It's this concept of factory engineers. And I think it was originally maybe the CEO of Warp or someone from Warp that said, we're not just software engineers now, we're engineers on the factory. Like we're trying to build the factory that builds the software.
Yeah.
And everyone's been talking about building software factories, automating the software development lifecycle. So Kent Dodds had a video that says what the devil is a factory engineer, but it's just this idea of like everyone's building software factories or trying to, what's a factory engineer? And it's the idea that a factory is like a system, you need more context, it needs to run for a long time.
Yep.
You need these long running agents. You can send more ambitious tasks. It's not like just a one task. You send a coding agent and you want to like go back and forth. You want to send a task that could run for days potentially and do some really like rewrite bun in Rust, things like that. Those types of really like ambitious tasks. And then you have more opportunities because it's more ambitious for things to fail. So the reason I bring this up, because one, it's a good video. There's a really lot of interest in how do you do these things.
Yep.
And we're working on a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
And depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching this live, we're going to announce some things in 2 days at the TSAI Conf. I'm pretty excited about it.
One thing about these factories is, and I think I'm always a hater on just everyone focusing on the coding use case, but like a software factory is not the only factory that can exist. There can be content factories.
Content, yeah.
Marketing, sales.
Maybe someday, we talked with Jan earlier, video production factory. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's going to start with coding because it's more easy to verify.
Yeah.
Write a test, did it pass? At least you can kind of verify did it work. Other tasks, you can have their own levels of verification. And I think there will be more automation around these things. And then you'll have engineers that, are helping teams build the factory to help it doesn't remove human in the loop, but it maybe moves how much human interaction you need at different stages. And so the humans focus on what are the really like critical hard tasks, and you can use the intelligence of the model to do some either mundane tasks or maybe even some like interesting tasks along the way too.
Yeah.
So,
Mastra made every engineer an AI engineer. Maybe it'll make every engineer a factory engineer. We'll see.
So last but not least, we once in a while we'll do a GitHub star party. And this is from someone that Abhi and I used to work with, and we didn't even know about it, but someone else built an Electron app for Mastra code. So that's cool. So it's available. It's called Yardarm. It's from Jeremiah, who used to work with us at Gatsby.
Very cool.
But, there are a lot of people using Mastra code out there. It's open source. People are building on it. We're doing some of our own things around this as well, but it's always cool to see the community coming up with interesting ways to use the tools that we're building. So go give Jeremiah a star. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
And with that, that's the show. That's the news. You should be following us on X if you're not already at Mastra. All these things are on YouTube. You might be watching this on YouTube right now. Mastra AI, Mastra-AI on YouTube. Follow me on X at smthomas3. Follow Abhi on X at Abhi Aiyer. How should we close it out today?
Well, we're in London, so maybe we just say cheers, lad.
Cheers.